Hello, my name is Sunny and I've got goals. So 2016 is upon us. We're almost finished with January, right? I had decided this year I wanted to read 52 books, so I sat down. I started writing my list of books I wanted to read. A lot of them from my shelf, a lot of them are like new series that I've never read before or new books that are coming out this year. I have 105 on my list, so that's a problem. So I'm trying to read as much as humanly possible, and therefore I've read 8 books in January, so let's talk about them. The first book that I read in January was Madly by Amy Aylward. This was a super cute book. I chose it because it's actually beautiful cover. I love the design of this. It sounds really cute. The premise is that there's a princess who is poisoned, and there's a treasure hunt by the potion makers to try to figure out what kind of ingredients she had used and how she poisoned herself and all of that stuff. Just kind of adorable. It's a YA, and I kept seeing it on the shelf, and it's just such a gorgeous cover, and I was intrigued by it. What does it mean? And I finally just broke down one day in December and bought it, and so that was the first one I read this year. It was really cute. A great kickoff to the year. And then I was swept into Passenger Fever by all of the really positive reviews. I just decided to plonk down some money and buy it the day it came out, and I read it in a couple days, and this was really good. This book kind of is time travel and treasure hunts and pirates and violins, and it's great. I really enjoyed this. I want to read it again. I almost did read it a second time, but I kind of want to move through my list a little bit before I do a reread already in one year. So I'm looking forward to it. This was great fun. So after reading 2 kind of larger books, I was feeling like I was falling a little bit behind. I needed to read some smaller books just to kind of keep my numbers up for the month. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to keep up the same pace, so I wanted to try to pad as many numbers into the first few weeks as possible. So I picked up the Curse Worker Trilogy by Holly Black. I actually picked these up in December. The covers are just very striking. They're so freaking gorgeous. They just kind of caught my eye. So I sat down and read these. They didn't take me very long. These are pretty short books, actually. And they were very intriguing. They're kind of, I love the way that it's said on the back, a noir thriller. They're kind of a contemporary fantasy. The way that the magic works in this series is pretty cool. If she ever does any more in this world, I would love to read it. It's about a young guy named Castle who is from a family of con artists and curse workers. And curse workers in this world are like looked down on with suspicion. Everybody wears gloves. Just because the way that you work curses is through your hands, and so everybody's protected. Even if you don't think that the other person has, the ability to work curses, you wear gloves. It's just the polite thing to do. It was a really fun adventure, kind of dark, kind of mysterious, and I really enjoyed it. The 6th book I read this January was Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. Another book that I was intrigued by the cover because it's freaking gorgeous. One day at work, somebody was buying the 2nd book in this series, and it is such a striking, beautiful cover. I asked the customer about it, and he highly recommended it. Then I realized this is what the Expanse series on Sci-Fi is based off of, and that I wanted to watch that. So I had to read Leviathan Wakes. So freaking glad I picked this up because this was amazing. This is set in space. It's a sci-fi adventure. I guess you would call it a space opera. Space opera is basically a sci-fi space adventure story, kind of like a soap opera, but a space opera. This was everything that I want in a space opera. It had spaceships, it had war, and maybe at the fringe, like some kind of alien thing going on. This was really good. And it's a very large book. I didn't read the 2nd one right away because I needed to pad my numbers, right? I needed to keep reading. I can't really, summarize this. Humans have colonized the solar system. Out into the asteroid belt, there's a bunch of space stations and colonies out there. Mars has been colonized, the moon has been colonized, and it's just fascinating to see how everything comes about. The reality is a basis in this. You're always confronted with the vacuum of space and gravity, and the stories themselves within this are compelling as well. So pick this up if you're at all interested in watching the series or reading sci-fi. Great read. And the last two books that I read this January was The Pawn of Prophecy by David Eddings and its follow-up, The Queen of Sorcery. These are book 1 and 2 of the Belgariad. It is super classic fantasy fare. It's very similar to like The Wheel of Time. It's very similar to sort of like Tolkien. Very classic. This was originally written in like the early 80s, so it's a little dry. It's it's not as contemporary feeling, obviously. Duh. But I read these two before. I've read these like years ago, but I finally got the last 3 in the series. There's 5 books. So I decided, after reading Leviathan Wake's giant space story, I needed to go back and read some fantasy. So picked these back up, read these. I'm on book 3 right now, and today's the last day of January, so technically I'm reading this in January. But I'll be finishing this up within the next few days, picking up the last 2 in the series, and I can finally say I have read the Belgariad, and it's actually getting quite interesting in this 3rd book. I kind of slogged through the other 2, pushed myself to read them because I'd already read them, and not my favorite fantasy stories I've ever read, but I'm glad to finally get the chance to say, hey, I've read some David Eddings, I've read the Belgariad. So if you're interested in fantasy, I would say read it at least once, and so I'm doing it. So that's all that I've read in January. I'm not really sure yet what I will be planning on reading in February. I don't think I'll have a list prepared beforehand. I had thought about doing that January 1st, like doing a, hey, this is what I'm going to read in January. I decided to open the year up and say, look, I've got a list of books to read, you know, just choose something off of the shelves, whatever I'm in the mood for, and maybe I'll get more books in that way. There are some books that I would like to read in February. Maybe I'll come up with a list. But I'm excited that I feel really accomplished by finishing all of these books. Like I can walk up to somebody and say, I've read 8 books so far this year, and they're like, wait, you mean in like January, right? Just so far in January? Yes. January, 8 books. Yeah, I can like tick that off of the box of things that I need to do in my life, or things that I can say I've done in my life. One of those is I've written 50,000 words in a month. This one, I've read 8 books in a month, and I think the most wonderful thing about it is that I actually sat down the other day and wrote. That was what was missing in November, why I fell off of NaNoWriMo. I feel really bad about that. It was the reading. I was doing so much focus and so much nitty-gritty like writing prep and everything else to do with getting this story out, that when I actually sat down to write, I was second-guessing myself left and right. Like, oh wait, is this how I can do a scene? You know, do I need to spend so much time in this person's head, or do I need to go and do like action? Do I need to just keep moving it forward? And I lost touch with how storycraft is done by seeing how others do it. And so I'm gonna keep up this, I'm gonna try to keep up this pace with reading, and then also adding in writing time as well. So I'm gonna be finishing my story that I started in November. I had gotten 19,000 words done. I don't think I ever finally reported on that. I had gotten 19,000 words done, and then I just kind of stopped. It wouldn't work, and I didn't want to force it. I didn't want to hate the story. I still love the story. And I'll be working on that and sharing my progress with that as well over the next few months. So I do want to get that story out. It's fun. It's part of my heart now. I guess that's it for me today. I'm having so much fun reading, and I've got so many books that I want to read, and I can't wait to share how excited I am about them or my feelings about them. There's a lot that I've read already that I want to reread. I'm going back and visiting some old favorites. So I will see you soon. Maybe I'll do a TBR. Maybe I'll share with some of the books that I read in December, because I've been reading like crazy lately. And maybe some anticipated books of 2016 that are coming out soon. So I will see you next time for another video. Bye. These are the books. That's a lot of books. The 4th book I read this January. No, wait. That was 1, 2, 3, 4,